The courtroom went silent as the recording began to play. Everyone leaned forward to hear the voice crackling through the speakers. "Sign the transfer papers now. Give me control of everything, or I swear I'll fire Maria and put you in a nursing home where you'll rot." The elderly woman sitting at the plaintiff's table closed her eyes. The caregiver beside her reached over and squeezed her hand, and the man who'd just testified about how much he loved his sister turned pale. He hadn't known about the recording, and now his entire scheme was unraveling in real time. Let me tell you how we got here. I'm an estate planning attorney in Boston, Massachusetts. I've been practicing for 19 years, specializing in elder law and protecting vulnerable clients from financial exploitation. Eleanor Vance's case is one I'll never forget. Not because of the legal complexity, though there was plenty of that, but because of what it revealed about human nature, about greed, about loyalty, and about how far some people will go to steal from their own family. Eleanor Vance was 65 years old when this story began. She was a widow, her husband having died 7 years earlier from cancer. They'd had a good marriage, built a successful life together. Eleanor and her late husband Richard had owned a small chain of hardware stores in the Boston area. 3 locations. Nothing fancy, but profitable and well-run. When Richard died, Eleanor sold the business for a substantial amount. After taxes, investments, and careful planning, Eleanor had approximately $1.9 million in assets, a paid-off house in a nice neighborhood, a diversified investment portfolio, more than enough to live comfortably for the rest of her life. But Eleanor had health issues. She'd survived breast cancer in her 50s. She had arthritis that made daily tasks difficult. She had mobility problems that required a walker for anything beyond short distances. She was mentally sharp as ever. Her mind was fine, but her body was declining, and she needed help with daily living. That's where Maria Rodriguez came in. Maria had been Eleanor's housekeeper and caregiver for 20 years. She'd started working for Eleanor and Richard when Eleanor was first diagnosed with cancer. Back then, Maria was just helping with cleaning and cooking. But over the years, as Eleanor's health declined, and especially after Richard died, Maria's role had expanded. She helped Eleanor with bathing. She managed medications. She did the grocery shopping. She drove Eleanor to doctor appointments. More than that, Maria had become Eleanor's closest companion. They watched movies together. They talked for hours. Maria knew Eleanor's likes and dislikes, her routines, her quirks. Eleanor paid Maria well, very well. About $70,000 a year, plus health insurance and paid vacation. It was generous compensation, but Eleanor could afford it, and Maria earned every penny. Eleanor trusted Maria completely. She'd even added Maria as a co-signer on one checking account for household expenses, just for convenience, so Maria could buy groceries and pay bills without constantly asking Eleanor for money. For 20 years, this arrangement worked perfectly. Maria was honest, devoted, and competent. Eleanor was comfortable, well cared for, and happy. Then Kevin appeared. Kevin Vance was Eleanor's younger brother, 10 years younger, which made him 55 when this story began. Kevin had always been the problem child in the family. Couldn't hold a job, bad with money, multiple failed businesses, 2 divorces, always borrowing money from family members and never paying it back. Eleanor had helped Kevin financially for years. She'd loaned him money for business ventures that failed. She'd bailed him out when he couldn't make rent. She'd even paid for his attorney during his second divorce. But about 15 years earlier, Eleanor had finally cut Kevin off financially. He'd asked for $50,000 to invest in what turned out to be a pyramid scheme. Eleanor refused. Kevin became angry and accusatory. "You're loaded, and you won't even help your own brother? What kind of sister are you?" "Kevin, I've been helping you your entire adult life. I've given you over $200,000 over the years, none of which you've paid back, none of which you've used responsibly. I'm done." Kevin had stormed out, and Eleanor hadn't heard from him in 15 years. No calls, no visits, no birthday cards. Nothing. Eleanor assumed Kevin had moved on with his life. She occasionally wondered about him but didn't miss the drama and financial stress he brought. Then, about 3 months before this case erupted, Kevin suddenly reappeared. He called Eleanor out of the blue. His voice was friendly, warm, apologetic. "Eleanor, it's Kevin. I know it's been a long time. I'm so sorry for how I acted all those years ago. I was immature and entitled. I've grown up a lot since then." Eleanor was cautious but willing to hear him out. "What have you been doing all these years?" "I moved to Florida, got married again. Lisa, my wife, she's wonderful. She helped me get my act together. I've been working in sales, doing well. We're stable now." "That's good, Kevin. I'm happy for you. I wanted to reconnect, to apologize for being such a burden when we were younger, and to see how you're doing." They talked for over an hour. Kevin seemed genuinely changed. He asked about Eleanor's health, her life, her needs. He didn't ask for money. He just seemed interested in rebuilding their relationship. Over the next few weeks, Kevin called regularly. He and Lisa even flew to Boston to visit Eleanor. The visit seemed nice at first. Kevin was attentive and concerned. Lisa was friendly and helpful. But something felt off to Maria. "They ask a lot of questions about money," Maria told Eleanor after Kevin and Lisa left from their first visit. "About your investments, about who handles your finances, about your will." "They're just curious," Eleanor said. "Kevin's my brother. He has a right to know about my situation." "Maybe. But be careful, Miss Eleanor. People who disappear for 15 years and suddenly come back usually want something." Eleanor appreciated Maria's concern, but dismissed it. Kevin seemed genuinely changed. He was her brother. Family. But Maria's instincts were right. During Kevin's second visit to Boston, about 6 weeks after the initial contact, he started making suggestions. "Eleanor, you need to think about your future care. What happens if your health gets worse? Who's going to make decisions for you? I have everything set up. I have a will. I have a healthcare directive. Maria knows what I want." Kevin's expression darkened slightly. "Maria, your housekeeper. Eleanor, you need family making these decisions, not hired help." "Maria isn't just hired help. She's been with me for 20 years. She's the person I trust most in the world." "She's not family. Neither were you for 15 years. The tension was immediate. Lisa jumped in to smooth things over, but the visit ended awkwardly. After Kevin and Lisa left, Eleanor felt unsettled. Maria had been right. Kevin wasn't interested in rebuilding a relationship. He was interested in her money and who controlled it. 2 weeks later, Eleanor received a certified letter. It was from an attorney representing Kevin Vance. The letter informed Eleanor that Kevin was petitioning the court for conservatorship over Eleanor's person and estate. The petition claimed that Eleanor was suffering from severe dementia, that she was being unduly influenced by her caregiver, Maria Rodriguez, and that Kevin, as her only living relative, needed to take over management of her affairs to protect her. Eleanor was furious and terrified. She immediately called her estate planning attorney, a man named Ethan Shaw, who'd helped her with her will and trust documents after Richard died. "Ethan, my brother is trying to steal my money. He's claiming I have dementia and that Maria is manipulating me. Neither of those things is true. What do I do?" I should clarify here, I'm not Ethan Shaw, but I worked closely with him on this case, and he's given me permission to share the story from his perspective, with Eleanor's blessing. Ethan had Eleanor come to his office immediately. He reviewed the petition Kevin had filed. "This is serious," Ethan told her. If Kevin succeeds in getting conservatorship, he'll control all your money and all decisions about your care. He could fire Maria. He could sell your house. He could put you in a facility, and there's not much you could do about it. But I don't have dementia. I'm completely competent. I know that. But Kevin is claiming otherwise. He's apparently got a doctor's statement saying you showed signs of cognitive decline during a recent visit. What doctor? I haven't seen any doctor recently except my regular physician, and she'll tell you I'm fine. Kevin's petition includes a statement from a Dr. Harrison Wallace. Do you know him? Eleanor thought hard. No, I've never heard that name. According to the statement, you met with Dr. Wallace during Kevin's last visit to Boston. He evaluated you and found signs of moderate dementia. That's a complete lie. I never met with any doctor named Wallace. Ethan believed her, but belief wasn't enough. They needed evidence. Here's what we're going to do, Ethan said. First, we're going to get you a comprehensive neuropsychological evaluation from an independent, highly respected expert, someone whose credentials are impeccable. That evaluation will prove you're competent. Okay, what else? Second, we're going to investigate this Dr. Wallace, because if you never met with him, then that statement is fraudulent, and fraud is a crime. Can Kevin actually do this? Just lie and try to take over my life? Unfortunately, yes. Elder abuse, especially financial exploitation, is more common than people realize, and conservatorship proceedings, while designed to protect vulnerable people, can be weaponized by greedy relatives. What about Maria? Kevin's claiming she's manipulating me. We'll need Maria to testify about your relationship and her role in your care. We'll need to show that she's been honest and faithful, and that your trust in her is warranted. Eleanor left Ethan's office feeling slightly better. At least she had a plan. At least someone believed her. But the next few weeks were a nightmare. Kevin and his wife Lisa rented an apartment in Boston. They weren't going back to Florida. They were staying until the conservatorship was granted. They started showing up at Eleanor's house unannounced, letting themselves in with a key Eleanor didn't remember giving Kevin, making themselves comfortable, acting like they already owned the place. "We're just checking on you, Eleanor," Kevin would say, "making sure Maria is taking proper care of you." But their checking felt more like surveillance. They'd go through Eleanor's papers. They'd ask to see bank statements. They'd question every penny Eleanor spent. "Why did you spend $400 at the salon?" Lisa asked one day, holding up a credit card statement. "That's excessive." "I got my hair done," Eleanor said. "It's my money. I can spend it how I want." "Not if you're being taken advantage of. Maria probably convinced you to spend that much." "Maria had nothing to do with it. I went to the salon I've been going to for 30 years. The gaslighting was relentless. Kevin and Lisa were constantly implying Eleanor was confused, forgetful, easily manipulated. They were building their case by creating situations that could be interpreted as cognitive decline. Maria watched all of this with growing alarm. "Miss Eleanor, they're trying to drive you crazy. They're trying to make you doubt yourself so you'll actually seem incompetent." "I know, but what can I do?" "Document everything. Write down every interaction. Keep records of everything you do, everywhere you go. Prove you're competent through your actions." Eleanor did start documenting, but she had another problem. She was having trouble remembering phone conversations. Not because of dementia, but because she was stressed and overwhelmed. When Kevin would call and say something, she'd later second-guess whether he'd actually said it, or whether she'd misunderstood. That's when Eleanor made a decision that would change everything. She bought a small voice-activated recorder and placed it in her living room, the room where she had most of her conversations, whether on the phone or in person. She told Maria about it. "I need proof of what's being said. I need evidence that I'm not imagining things." Are you sure? Recording people without their knowledge might be problematic. This is my house. It's legal to record conversations in my own home in Massachusetts. I checked. Maria wasn't entirely sure that was true, but she understood Eleanor's desperation. The recorder started capturing everything. Every conversation with Kevin, every visit from Lisa, every phone call where they pressured Eleanor or made accusations about Maria. And what it captured was explosive. About 3 weeks before the conservatorship hearing, Kevin and Lisa visited Eleanor when Maria was out running errands. The recorder caught the entire conversation. Kevin's voice. Eleanor, you need to sign these papers. They transfer your power of attorney to me, just temporarily, until we get the conservatorship sorted out. Eleanor's voice, clearly strong and coherent. I'm not signing anything, Kevin. I don't need a conservatorship. I'm perfectly capable of managing my own affairs. Lisa's voice. Eleanor, you're not thinking clearly. Maria has gotten into your head. She's poisoning you against your own family. Eleanor. Maria hasn't poisoned me against anyone. You're trying to steal my money, and I'm not letting you. Kevin, his voice turning cold. Sign the damn papers, Eleanor. Sign them now, or I swear to God I will make your life hell. I'll fire Maria. I'll put you in the worst nursing home I can find. You'll sit there in your own filth while I spend your money on myself. Is that what you want? Eleanor, her voice shaking but defiant. Get out of my house. Lisa, we're not leaving until you sign. Kevin, you're making a huge mistake. This can be easy or this can be hard. Your choice. The recorder captured Eleanor calling 911. It captured the police arriving and Kevin and Lisa leaving reluctantly, claiming they were just concerned family members. But that wasn't the most damning recording. 2 days later, the recorder captured a conversation between Kevin and Lisa, speaking in Eleanor's living room, when they thought Eleanor was napping upstairs. Kevin's voice. We need to make her look more incompetent. The doctor's report isn't going to be enough. Lisa. How? Kevin. Bank statements. We'll create fake ones showing Maria making unauthorized withdrawals. We'll show she's been stealing. That'll prove Eleanor's judgment is compromised. Lisa. Can we forge bank statements? Kevin. We don't have to forge them. We'll just take real statements and alter them digitally. Then we'll accidentally discover them and bring them to the court. By the time anyone figures out they're fake, we'll already have conservatorship. Lisa. What about Maria? She'll fight us. Kevin. Once I have conservatorship, I'll fire her immediately. She'll have no legal standing. Eleanor will be under my control. The money will be mine. It was a completed mission of their scheme, their plan to commit fraud, their intention to steal Eleanor's assets. And Eleanor had it all on tape. She called Ethan Shaw immediately. You need to hear this. Ethan came to Eleanor's house that evening. Maria was there too. They listened to the recordings together. When the recordings finished, Ethan sat back with a look of grim satisfaction. This changes everything. The conservatorship hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. In that time, Ethan Shaw worked around the clock to prepare Eleanor's defense. First, they dealt with the neuropsychological evaluation. Ethan had arranged for Eleanor to be examined by Dr. Patricia Morrison, one of the most respected geriatric neuropsychologists in Boston. Dr. Morrison conducted a comprehensive evaluation over 2 full days. She tested Eleanor's memory, reasoning, language skills, executive function, and emotional state. She reviewed Eleanor's medical history. She interviewed both Eleanor and Maria extensively. Her report was unequivocal. Mrs. Vance demonstrates cognitive function well within normal limits for her age. She shows no signs of dementia, delirium, or any other condition that would impair her judgment or decision-making capacity. Her memory is intact. Her reasoning is sound. She is fully competent to manage her own affairs. The report went on to note that Eleanor's only cognitive issue was mild stress-related forgetfulness, which was entirely normal given that her brother was attempting to seize control of her life and assets. Ethan was satisfied. This would counter Kevin's claims of dementia. But what about the statement from Dr. Harrison Wallace, the doctor Kevin claimed had evaluated Eleanor and found cognitive decline? Ethan hired an investigator to look into Dr. Wallace. What the investigator found was shocking. Dr. Harrison Wallace did exist. He was a licensed physician in Florida, but he wasn't a neurologist or psychiatrist. He was a general practitioner, and he'd never practiced in Massachusetts, and he'd never evaluated Eleanor Vance. When the investigator contacted Dr. Wallace, the doctor was confused and alarmed. "I never wrote any report about Eleanor Vance. I've never even heard that name." "Someone submitted a report with your name and signature claiming you evaluated her," the investigator explained. "That's impossible. Let me see it." The investigator sent Dr. Wallace a copy of the report Kevin had submitted to the court. Dr. Wallace examined it carefully. "That's not my signature. Someone forged it. This document is completely fraudulent." Dr. Wallace was furious. He immediately contacted the medical board and the police to report that his name and credentials had been used fraudulently. Ethan now had evidence that Kevin had submitted a forged medical report to the court. That was fraud, potentially criminal fraud. But Ethan still had a problem. Kevin's attorney would argue that Kevin relied on the report in good faith, that he didn't know it was forged, that perhaps Lisa or someone else had obtained it without Kevin's knowledge. That's where the recordings became crucial. Under Massachusetts law, it's legal to record conversations in your own home without the other party's consent. It's called one-party consent. As long as one person in the conversation consents to the recording, it's legal. Eleanor consented because it was her recording in her own home. Ethan filed a motion with the court, asking for permission to introduce the recordings as evidence. Kevin's attorney objected strenuously. "These recordings were made without my client's knowledge or consent. They're inadmissible." "They were made legally in Mrs. Vance's own home," Ethan countered, "and they're directly relevant to this proceeding. They show that Mr. Vance is attempting to defraud the court and exploit his sister financially." The judge, a woman named Sandra Torres who'd been on the probate bench for 15 years, listened to both arguments. "I'll review the recordings in chambers before making a decision about admissibility," she said. Judge Torres listened to the recordings in private. When she emerged, her expression was stern. "The recordings are admissible. They were legally obtained, and they're highly relevant to the question of whether conservatorship is appropriate and whether Mr. Vance is a suitable conservator." Kevin's attorney looked sick. Kevin himself looked panicked. The hearing took place on a cold November morning. The courtroom was small, designed for probate matters rather than dramatic trials. But what happened that day was plenty dramatic. Kevin's attorney went first, presenting his case for why Eleanor needed a conservator. "Your Honor, Mrs. Vance is 65 years old and suffers from significant health problems. She requires assistance with daily living. She's become isolated and dependent on a single caregiver who has gained inappropriate influence over her financial decisions." The attorney presented the forged medical report from Dr. Wallace, apparently unaware that it had been exposed as fraudulent. "As you can see from Dr. Wallace's evaluation, Mrs. Vance shows clear signs of cognitive decline. She needs someone to protect her from being exploited." Ethan stood up. "Your Honor, I'd like to address that medical report." "Proceed." "The report purporting to be from Dr. Harrison Wallace is a forgery. Dr. Wallace has confirmed he never evaluated Mrs. Vance and did not write or sign this report. We have a sworn affidavit from Dr. Wallace attesting to this fact." Ethan handed the affidavit to the judge. Kevin's attorney looked shocked. "Your Honor, I was not aware. My client provided this document. We'll address the implications of the fraudulent document later," Judge Torres said. "Continue with your case." Kevin's attorney, now visibly rattled, called Kevin to testify. Kevin took the stand and painted a picture of a concerned brother who'd been alarmed to find his sister declining and under the influence of a manipulative caregiver. "I haven't seen Eleanor in 15 years, Kevin testified. When I reconnected with her, I was shocked by how much she'd changed. She seemed confused, forgetful. She kept repeating herself. And this woman, Maria, seemed to be making all her decisions for her." "Why did you wait 15 years to contact your sister?" Ethan asked on cross-examination. "We had a falling out over money. I'm not proud of it. But I've matured. I wanted to make amends." "The falling out happened when Eleanor refused to give you $50,000 for a pyramid scheme investment, correct?" "It wasn't a pyramid scheme. Answer the question. She refused to give you money, and you disappeared from her life for 15 years. "Yes." "And now, coincidentally, when Eleanor has almost $2 million in assets, you've suddenly returned and want to control those assets. I'm trying to protect her. From what? From the caregiver who's been faithful to her for 20 years? Or from herself spending her own money the way she wants?" Kevin stumbled through his answers, becoming defensive and evasive. It wasn't going well for him. Then Ethan called Maria Rodriguez to testify. Maria was nervous. English was her second language, and she worried about being able to express herself clearly in court. But Ethan had prepared her well. "Ms. Rodriguez, how long have you worked for Eleanor Vance?" 20 years. I started when Mrs. Vance was first sick with cancer." "What are your responsibilities?" "I help Mrs. Vance with daily living, cooking, cleaning, medication management, transportation to appointments. I manage the household." "Do you have access to Mrs. Vance's financial accounts?" "I am co-signer on one checking account for household expenses. Mrs. Vance added me 5 years ago, so I could buy groceries and pay bills without always asking her for money." "Have you ever taken money from that account for your own use?" "Never. Every penny I spend, I keep receipts. Mrs. Vance reviews the account every month. She knows exactly where every dollar goes." "Has Mrs. Vance ever given you gifts or bonuses?" "Yes. She's very generous. At Christmas, she gives me a bonus. On my birthday, she gives me gifts. When my mother in Guatemala needed surgery, Mrs. Vance helped pay for it. She's been incredibly kind." "Has she included you in her will?" Maria hesitated. "I don't know. She's never discussed her will with me. Would you be surprised if she had? I would be honored, but I've never asked. I work for Mrs. Vance because I care about her, not because I expect anything when she dies." Kevin's attorney cross-examined Maria aggressively, trying to paint her as a gold digger who'd manipulated a vulnerable elderly woman. "You have access to Mrs. Vance's checking account, correct?" "Yes." "For household expenses?" "Yes or no?" "Yes." "You receive a very generous salary of $70,000 per year, correct?" "Yes." "Mrs. Vance pays me well." "Just yes or no?" "You receive $70,000 plus health insurance and paid vacation?" "Yes." "Isn't it true that you've isolated Mrs. Vance from her family? That you've turned her against her own brother?" "No, that's not true. You don't want Mr. Vance involved in his sister's life because it threatens your position and your access to her money. Isn't that right?" Maria's eyes filled with tears. "No, I've never isolated Mrs. Vance from anyone. Mr. Vance disappeared for 15 years. I had nothing to do with that. And when he came back, I welcomed him. But then I saw he only cared about money, not about his sister." "You're just trying to protect your meal ticket, aren't you?" "Your Honor," Ethan objected. "Counsel is badgering the witness." "Sustained. Move on, counselor." But the damage was done. Kevin's attorney had planted seeds of doubt about Maria's motives. Then it was time for Eleanor to testify. Eleanor walked slowly to the witness stand, using her walker. She looked frail and elderly. But the moment she started speaking, her mental sharpness was evident. Ethan questioned her first, establishing that she was fully competent and aware of what was happening. Mrs. Vance, do you understand that your brother has petitioned for conservatorship over your person and estate? Yes, I understand perfectly. He wants to steal my money. Why do you believe that? Because he disappeared for 15 years after I refused to give him more money. Now he's back, claiming I'm incompetent so he can control my assets. It's transparent. Do you trust Maria Rodriguez? Completely. She's been loyal and honest for 20 years. She's the closest person I have to family, besides Kevin. And Kevin has proven he can't be trusted. Do you have any cognitive issues? Any problems with memory or reasoning? My memory is fine. My reasoning is fine. I'm 65 years old with some physical limitations, but my mind is sharp. I know exactly what's happening here, and I won't let it happen. Kevin's attorney tried to rattle Eleanor on cross-examination, but she held firm. She answered every question clearly and confidently. She provided specific details about her finances, her healthcare decisions, her relationship with Maria. She demonstrated beyond any doubt that she was fully competent. Then, Ethan played the trump card. Your Honor, I'd like to play recordings that Mrs. Vance legally made in her own home. These recordings are directly relevant to Mr. Vance's suitability as conservator and to his true motives for seeking conservatorship. Kevin's attorney objected again, but Judge Torres had already ruled the recordings admissible. The courtroom went silent as the first recording played. Kevin's voice filled the room, threatening Eleanor, demanding she sign papers, promising to fire Maria and put Eleanor in a nursing home, where you'll rot. Kevin's face turned red. He whispered urgently to his attorney, who looked increasingly distressed. Then, the second recording played. Kevin and Lisa, discussing forging bank statements, talking about stealing Eleanor's money, admitting their entire scheme. When the recording ended, Judge Torres looked at Kevin with barely concealed disgust. Mr. Vance, do you have anything to say about what we just heard? Kevin's attorney whispered to him urgently. Kevin shook his head, trying to formulate a response. Those recordings are taken out of context. Out of context? You explicitly threaten your sister and discuss committing fraud. What context makes that acceptable? I was frustrated. You were plotting to exploit your sister financially. That's what I heard. Judge Torres called a brief recess. When she returned, her decision was swift and definitive. I'm denying the petition for conservatorship in its entirety. Mrs. Vance is clearly competent to manage her own affairs. Mr. Vance has demonstrated that he's not suitable to serve as conservator, and that his motives are financial exploitation, not protection of his sister. She paused, looking at Kevin sternly. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for investigation of potential criminal fraud. The forged medical document and the recorded admissions of planning to commit fraud are serious matters that warrant criminal investigation. Kevin looked stunned. His attorney was gathering papers frantically, trying to get his client out of the courtroom as quickly as possible. But Judge Torres wasn't finished. I'm also issuing a restraining order. Mr. Vance and Lisa Vance are prohibited from contacting Eleanor Vance or entering her property. They are to have no contact whatsoever unless Mrs. Vance initiates it. Eleanor felt relief wash over her. It was over. She'd won. Maria reached over and hugged her. We did it, Miss Eleanor. We did it. Outside the courtroom, Ethan pulled Eleanor aside. You need to update your estate plan immediately. Make sure Kevin can never benefit from your estate, no matter what happens. I was already planning to. Can we do that today? Absolutely. They went directly to Ethan's office. Eleanor executed a new will that afternoon. The will left nothing to Kevin, not a single dollar. Eleanor made sure to include specific language. I am intentionally making no provision for my brother Kevin Vance. This is not an oversight, but a deliberate decision based on his attempts to exploit me financially. Eleanor left a substantial bequest to Maria, $250,000 in recognition of 20 years of faithful service. The rest of her estate was divided between several charities Eleanor had supported over the years. Eleanor also created a trust to ensure Maria would be taken care of if Eleanor needed long-term care. The trust would pay Maria's salary for as long as Eleanor lived, regardless of Eleanor's care situation. "You've been more family to me than my own brother," Eleanor told Maria. "You deserve security." Maria cried. "Thank you, Miss Eleanor. Thank you for trusting me." That evening, back at Eleanor's house, Maria made Eleanor's favorite dinner. They sat together and talked about the hearing, about Kevin, about everything that had happened. "I can't believe he tried to do this," Eleanor said. "I can't believe my own brother would try to steal from me." "Some people see family as people they're entitled to take from," Maria said. "They don't see relationships. They see resources." "You're right. And the sad thing is, if Kevin had just come back and genuinely wanted a relationship, I would have been generous. I would have helped him when I died, probably left him a significant inheritance. But he couldn't wait. He couldn't be patient or genuine. He had to try to take it all now. Greed makes people foolish. It does. And now he gets nothing. And he might go to prison." Eleanor felt a pang of sadness about that. Despite everything, Kevin was still her brother. She didn't want him to go to prison. But she also couldn't ignore what he'd done. 2 weeks after the conservatorship hearing, Eleanor received a call from an assistant district attorney named Jennifer Walsh. "Mrs. Vance, I'm calling about your brother Kevin. Judge Torres referred his case to our office for investigation. I'd like to meet with you to discuss the evidence." Eleanor agreed. She, Maria, and Ethan Shaw met with ADA Walsh at the district attorney's office. Walsh was in her 40s, sharp and focused. She'd been prosecuting elder abuse cases for over a decade. "Mrs. Vance, I've reviewed the recordings and the forged medical document. These constitute serious crimes: attempted fraud, forgery, elder abuse. Your brother could face significant prison time." "How much time?" Eleanor asked. "If convicted on all counts, potentially 5 to 10 years. Eleanor looked troubled. "That seems harsh. Elder abuse is taken very seriously in Massachusetts. Your brother tried to seize control of your assets through fraud and forgery. He threatened you. He planned to isolate you and exploit you. These aren't minor offenses." "What happens now?" "We'll present the case to a grand jury. If they indict, we'll proceed with prosecution. I'll need you and Maria to testify." Eleanor nodded. "We'll do whatever we need to do." The investigation moved forward. Kevin and Lisa were formally charged with attempted fraud, forgery, and financial exploitation of an elder. Kevin tried to negotiate. His attorney approached Walsh with a plea offer. "My client will plead guilty to reduced charges if you recommend probation instead of prison time." Walsh wasn't interested. "Your client tried to steal almost $2 million from his vulnerable sister. He forged documents and submitted them to a court. He threatened her. This deserves prison time." "My client is a first-time offender. He's a first-time offender who got caught. I guarantee this isn't the first scam he's attempted. It's just the first time someone had him on tape." The case went to trial 4 months later. Eleanor and Maria both testified, recounting the entire scheme. The recordings were played for the jury. The forged medical document was entered into evidence. The most powerful moment came when Eleanor testified about Kevin's threat. "He told me he'd put me in a nursing home where I'd rot if I didn't give him control of my money," Eleanor said, her voice breaking slightly. "That's my brother, the boy I grew up with, the person I'd helped financially for decades. And he was threatening to abandon me in a facility while he stole everything I had." Several jurors looked visibly affected. Kevin's defense was weak. His attorney tried to argue that Kevin was just concerned about his sister and that his methods were misguided, but not criminal. The jury didn't buy it. After 3 days of trial and 4 hours of deliberation, they returned guilty verdicts on all counts. Kevin was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Lisa, who'd been a willing participant in the scheme, received 3 years. Eleanor attended the sentencing hearing. When the judge asked if she wanted to make a victim impact statement, she stood up. "Your Honor, Kevin is my brother. Despite everything he did, I still remember the little boy who looked up to me when we were kids. I don't take pleasure in seeing him go to prison." She paused, gathering her thoughts. But what he did was unforgivable. He saw me as an obstacle to money he felt entitled to. He was willing to destroy my autonomy, my relationships, my quality of life, just to get his hands on assets that weren't his. That's not what family does. That's what predators do. Eleanor looked at Kevin directly. "You could have had a relationship with me. You could have been part of my life. I would have been generous when I died. But you couldn't wait. You couldn't be patient or genuine. You had to try to take everything immediately. And that's why you're going to prison." Kevin looked down, unable to meet his sister's eyes. After the sentencing, Eleanor, Maria, and Ethan went to lunch at Eleanor's favorite restaurant. "How do you feel?" Ethan asked. "Sad, relieved, vindicated, all at once. You did the right thing. Kevin needed to be held accountable." "I know, but it's still hard. He's my brother, my only sibling, and now he'll be in prison for 6 years. He's 55 years old. He'll be 61 when he gets out. His life is essentially over." "He did that to himself," Maria said gently. "You didn't put him in prison. His choices did." Eleanor nodded. "You're right. I just wish things had been different." Over the next few months, Eleanor settled back into a routine with Maria. The stress of the legal battle had taken a toll on her health, but she gradually recovered. She made some changes to her life, though. She became more social, joining a book club and a volunteer organization. She'd realized that her isolation had made her vulnerable to Kevin's scheme. Having a broader support network felt important. She also became involved with an elder abuse prevention organization. She shared her story at conferences and community events, helping other elderly people recognize warning signs of financial exploitation. "The most important thing," Eleanor would tell audiences, "is to trust your instincts. If a family member suddenly reappears after years of absence and starts asking about your money, that's a red flag. If someone tries to isolate you from the people who've been loyal to you, that's a red flag. If anyone pressures you to sign documents or give them control of your assets, that's a red flag." Eleanor's talks were popular. She was articulate, sympathetic, and had a powerful story to share. One day, about a year after Kevin's sentencing, Eleanor received a letter. It was from Kevin, postmarked from the prison. Eleanor stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. The letter was 3 pages long, handwritten. "Dear Eleanor, I know I have no right to contact you. I know the restraining order technically expired, but I'm sure you don't want to hear from me. I'm writing anyway because I need to say something. I'm sorry. Not sorry I got caught. Not sorry things went wrong. I'm genuinely sorry for what I tried to do to you. Prison has given me a lot of time to think about my life, about my choices, about who I've become. I've always been the family failure, the one who couldn't hold a job, the one who made bad decisions, the one everyone had to bail out. When I heard you'd inherited almost $2 million, I didn't see my sister. I saw a solution to all my problems. I saw money that could pay off my debts, fund my lifestyle, set me up for life. I convinced myself I deserved it, that you owed me, that I'd been treated unfairly by the family. But none of that was true. You didn't owe me anything. You'd already given me hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years. You'd already been incredibly generous. And I repaid that generosity by trying to steal from you. I understand now why you cut me off financially 15 years ago. I was a bottomless pit. No amount of money would ever be enough. I would always need more. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect you to visit or write back. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I did was wrong. Deeply wrong. Maria is a good person who loves you. I'm glad you have her. You deserve people in your life who care about you, not what you have. I'll be in prison for 5 more years. When I get out, I'll be an old man with no money and no prospects. That's my own doing. That's what my choices have earned me. I hope you're happy. I hope you're healthy. I hope you live a long life surrounded by people who actually love you. I'm sorry for everything. Kevin. Eleanor read the letter 3 times. Then she showed it to Maria. Do you think he means it? Maria asked. I don't know. Maybe. Prison does change people sometimes. Are you going to write back? Eleanor thought about it for a long time. No, I don't think so. Even if he's sincere, there's too much damage, too much betrayal. I can't have a relationship with him. That's fair. But I won't throw the letter away. I'll keep it. Maybe someday I'll feel differently. Eleanor folded the letter carefully and put it in a drawer. She didn't respond, but she also didn't destroy it. Life continued. Eleanor's health remained stable. Maria continued to care for her with dedication and love. About 2 years after the trial, Eleanor suffered a minor stroke. It left her with some weakness on her left side, but didn't affect her cognition. Her recovery took months. Maria was there every step of the way, helping with physical therapy, managing medications, keeping Eleanor's spirits up. I don't know what I'd do without you, Eleanor told Maria during recovery. You won't ever have to find out. I'll be here as long as you need me. Eleanor updated her will again. She increased Maria's bequest to $500,000. She also made arrangements to create a foundation in Maria's name that would provide scholarships for children of immigrant caregivers. You've given your life to caring for others, Eleanor told Maria. This foundation will help people like you build better lives for their families. Maria was overwhelmed. Ms. Eleanor, that's too much. It's not enough. You saved me, Maria. Not just from Kevin. You've saved me every day for 20 years. You've given me comfort, companionship, dignity. Money can't repay that, but it's what I have to give. 3 years after Kevin went to prison, Eleanor was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. The prognosis wasn't good. 6 months to a year, the doctors said. Eleanor took the news with remarkable calm. I've had a good life. I'm 70 years old. I've been loved. I've been cared for. I've had purpose. I'm ready. She made arrangements immediately, hospice care at home. Maria would continue to care for her until the end. All the paperwork was in order. She contacted Ethan Shaw one final time. I want to make absolutely sure Maria is protected after I'm gone. I don't want any challenges to the will. I don't want anyone questioning the money I'm leaving her. Ethan assured her everything was ironclad. Maria will receive her bequest without any issues. The will is crystal clear. Kevin is explicitly excluded. Your assets will go where you want them to go. Eleanor died 8 months after her diagnosis, peacefully at home with Maria holding her hand. The funeral was small. Maria was there. Ethan Shaw was there. Members of Eleanor's book club and volunteer organization. People whose lives Eleanor had touched through her advocacy work. Kevin was still in prison and didn't attend. Even if he'd been free, he wouldn't have been welcome. Eleanor's will was probated without any issues. Maria received $500,000. The foundation was established with another $500,000. The remaining $900,000 was divided among Eleanor's chosen charities. Maria used her inheritance to buy a small house and to bring her mother from Guatemala to live with her. She continued working as a caregiver because she loved the work, but now she had financial security. Ms. Eleanor gave me more than money, Maria would say. She gave me dignity. She trusted me. She valued me. That meant more than anything. The foundation in Maria's name has provided over 50 scholarships to date, helping children of immigrant caregivers access education and opportunities their parents worked so hard to provide. Eleanor's legacy wasn't just in the money she left. It was in the example she set. She stood up to exploitation. She protected herself. She valued loyalty over blood relation. She rewarded faithfulness and punished greed. 5 years after Eleanor's death, I was invited to speak at a national elder law conference. The topic was financial exploitation of elderly clients and how to protect them. I used Eleanor's case as the centerpiece of my presentation. With Maria's permission, I shared the entire story. The conference was in San Francisco, attended by over 800 attorneys from across the country. My presentation was scheduled for the second day. I told Eleanor's story chronologically. The brother who disappeared for 15 years then suddenly returned. The conservatorship petition. The fraudulent medical report. The recordings that exposed everything. The criminal trial and conviction. When I finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then the questions started. "How common is this?" an attorney from Texas asked. "Family members trying to seize control of elderly relatives' assets through fraudulent conservatorship proceedings." "More common than you'd think," I said. The National Center on Elder Abuse estimates that 1 in 10 Americans over 60 have experienced some form of elder abuse. Financial exploitation is one of the most common forms. Another attorney raised her hand. "What should we look for as warning signs that our elderly clients might be targeted?" Several red flags. Family members who've been absent suddenly reappearing and asking about finances. Pressure to add people to bank accounts or give them power of attorney. Isolation from longtime friends or caregivers. Unexplained changes in financial documents or estate plans. Any suggestion that the elderly person isn't competent when they clearly are. "What about the recordings Eleanor made? Was that really legal?" In Massachusetts, yes. It's a one-party consent state, meaning you can record conversations you're part of without the other party's knowledge. Laws vary by state, so attorneys need to check local statutes. But in Eleanor's case, the recordings were legal and became crucial evidence. An attorney from Florida spoke up. "I have a client in almost exactly this situation. Estranged son suddenly back in her life, pushing for power of attorney, claiming she's incompetent. But she's sharp as a tack. What should I do?" Document everything. Get an independent cognitive evaluation from a respected expert. Help your client protect her assets by removing the son from any accounts. Update estate planning documents immediately. And if the son makes threats or attempts fraud, report it to authorities and preserve all evidence. The questions continued for over an hour. Clearly, this was an issue attorneys were encountering regularly with clients. After the presentation, I was approached by dozens of attorneys who wanted to discuss similar cases. The stories were remarkably consistent. Adult children who'd been absent for years suddenly reappearing when elderly parents had money. Pressure to sign over control. Claims of incompetence when the parent was clearly competent. Threats to isolate the parent from caregivers or friends. One attorney told me, "My client's daughter tried to get conservatorship by claiming the mother had dementia. The mother is 85 and sharper than I am. But the daughter hired a doctor who'd never actually examined the mother to write a report saying she was incompetent." "That's fraud," I said. Report it. I did. The daughter was charged, but my client is devastated that her own daughter would do this. That's the emotional toll, I said. Even when clients win legally, they lose their family relationships. That pain doesn't go away. The conference organizers asked me to write an article for their journal about the case. The article, titled "The Recording That Saved Everything: Using Technology to Protect Elderly Clients from Financial Exploitation," was published 6 months later. The response was overwhelming. I received hundreds of emails from attorneys who'd read the article and wanted guidance on similar cases. But I also received emails from elderly people themselves, people who'd heard about Eleanor's story and recognized themselves in it. One woman wrote, "My son has been pressuring me to add him to all my accounts. He says it's just for convenience. After reading your article, I realize he's positioning himself to steal from me. Thank you for opening my eyes." Another email. "My daughter filed for conservatorship claiming I have dementia. I don't. Your article gave me the courage to fight back. I'm hiring an attorney." I referred these people to local elder law attorneys in their areas, but I also started thinking about how to reach more people with this information. I created a website dedicated to elder financial abuse prevention. The site included warning signs, resources, and stories from people who'd experienced exploitation. Maria contributed guest posts about what she'd witnessed with Eleanor. Her perspective as a caregiver was valuable. One of Maria's posts was particularly powerful. I watched Ms. Eleanor go from trusting her brother to realizing he was trying to steal from her. It broke her heart, but it also made her strong. She fought back. She protected herself. She didn't let guilt or family obligation stop her from defending her rights. Every elderly person deserves that same strength. You don't owe your assets to anyone just because they're family. If your adult children or relatives pressure you for money or control, that's exploitation, not love. Protect yourself. Trust the people who've proven themselves trustworthy, not the people who claim you owe them something. The website gained traction. Within a year, we had over 100,000 regular readers. Other caregivers and elderly people shared their stories in the comments. The most common theme was guilt. Elderly people felt guilty for not trusting family members, guilty for protecting their assets from adult children, guilty for believing their relatives were trying to exploit them. I wrote multiple articles addressing this guilt. You don't owe your adult children an inheritance. Your assets are yours until you die. If your children are counting on inheriting, that's their problem, not yours. If your relatives make you feel guilty for protecting your money, that's manipulation. People who genuinely care about you will respect your autonomy and your decisions. Trust is earned, not owed. Family relationships don't excuse exploitation. The message resonated. Thousands of elderly people reached out to share their stories of standing up to exploitative relatives. About 3 years after Eleanor's death, I received a call from Maria. "Mr. Shaw, something happened. Kevin is being released from prison early. Good behavior. He's getting out next month." "Has he contacted you?" "No, but I'm worried he'll show up. I'm worried he'll try something." "He's prohibited from contacting you under the restraining order, even though Eleanor is gone. If he violates that, call the police immediately." "Okay, thank you." Kevin was released from prison 6 months early. He was now 61 years old, broke, with a criminal record and no prospects. According to what Maria heard through mutual acquaintances, Kevin moved to a halfway house in Boston. He was working part-time at a convenience store. His wife Lisa had divorced him while he was in prison. Kevin made no attempt to contact Maria or to challenge Eleanor's will. Apparently, he'd learned his lesson. But his life was essentially ruined. At 61, with a felony record for elder abuse, he had no real future. He'd never recover financially. He'd never regain respectability. "Do you feel bad for him?" I asked Maria during one of our occasional check-ins. "A little," Maria admitted. "He's a human being. He's suffering. But he did it to himself. He had a sister who would have been generous if he'd been patient and genuine. Instead, he tried to steal from her." That's what happens when greed overtakes decency. Eleanor would agree with you. She would. Miss Eleanor always said that choices have consequences. Kevin made his choices. Now he's living with the consequences. 5 years after Eleanor's death, the Maria Rodriguez Scholarship Foundation had grown significantly. The original endowment of $500,000 had been invested wisely and had grown to over $700,000. The foundation provided 20 scholarships annually, each worth $10,000. It had helped over 100 young people attend college, children of caregivers, housekeepers, and other service workers. At the foundation's annual awards ceremony, Maria gave a speech. Miss Eleanor Vance saved my life in many ways. She employed me for 20 years. She trusted me. She valued me. And when her own brother tried to destroy that trust, she stood by me. When Miss Eleanor died, she left me money that changed my life. But more importantly, she left me a mission. This foundation is her legacy. These scholarships represent her values: loyalty, hard work, and the belief that everyone deserves opportunity. I'm proud to carry on Miss Eleanor's work. I'm proud to help young people build the futures their parents worked so hard to provide. And I'm grateful every day for having known such a remarkable woman. The audience gave Maria a standing ovation. Among the scholarship recipients that year was a young woman named Elena. Her mother had been a caregiver, like Maria. Elena was studying to become an attorney specializing in elder law. I want to help people like Miss Vance, Elena said when accepting her scholarship. I want to protect elderly people from exploitation. I want to make sure caregivers like my mother and Maria are valued and protected. It was Eleanor's legacy coming full circle. As I reflect on Eleanor's case now, years later, several lessons stand out. First, financial exploitation of elderly people is far more common than most people realize. It's not just strangers committing fraud. Often, it's family members who feel entitled to elderly relatives' assets. Second, conservatorship proceedings, while designed to protect vulnerable people, can be weaponized by greedy relatives. Attorneys need to be vigilant in investigating whether conservatorship is truly necessary or whether it's a money grab. Third, technology can be a powerful tool for protecting elderly clients. Eleanor's recordings were crucial evidence. In an age where elderly people are often dismissed as confused or incompetent, having audio or video evidence of their actual competence and the exploitation they're facing can be case-changing. Fourth, loyalty matters more than blood relation. Maria, who wasn't related to Eleanor, proved far more trustworthy than Kevin, who was Eleanor's only sibling. Family is defined by behavior, not biology. And finally, standing up to exploitation requires courage. Eleanor could have given in to Kevin's pressure. She could have avoided the confrontation and the legal battle. But she fought for her autonomy and her rights. And she won. I still practice elder law. I still help clients protect themselves from financial exploitation. And I always share Eleanor's story with clients who need to hear it. Because victims of exploitation need to know protection is possible. Fighting back works. You don't have to accept abuse just because it's coming from family. To any elderly person reading this who sees themselves in Eleanor's story, you have rights. Your assets are yours. No one is entitled to control you or your money just because they're related to you. Trust your instincts. If someone's behavior makes you uncomfortable, there's probably a reason. If relatives pressure you for money or control, that's a red flag. If anyone tries to isolate you from people who've been loyal, that's exploitation. Protect yourself. Hire an attorney. Document everything. Don't let guilt or family obligation stop you from defending your autonomy. And remember Maria's example. The people who deserve your trust are the people who've proven themselves trustworthy through years of loyalty, not the people who show up claiming they're entitled to your assets. Eleanor Vance fought for her dignity and her rights. She exposed her brother's scheme. She protected her assets and her autonomy. And she left a legacy that continues to help people years after her death. That's justice. That's strength. That's what elder law should be about. 10 years after Ms. Eleanor's death, I'm often asked to speak about my experience. Here's what I want people to know. Ms. Eleanor didn't just give me money. She gave me respect. She valued me as a person, not just as an employee. When her brother tried to destroy that relationship and steal from her, she fought back. Not just for herself, but for me too. I've worked as a caregiver for over 30 years now. I've seen many elderly people exploited by their own families. Adult children who suddenly become attentive when parents have money. Relatives who pressure vulnerable elderly people to sign documents or give them control. It breaks my heart every time. If you're a caregiver reading this, document everything. Keep receipts for every penny you spend. Be transparent about finances. Protect yourself from false accusations. If you're an elderly person, trust the people who've proven themselves trustworthy. Don't let guilt or family pressure force you to give control to people who don't have your best interests at heart. And if you're a family member genuinely concerned about an elderly relative, respect their autonomy. Support their decisions. Don't try to take control unless they truly need it and ask for it. Ms. Eleanor taught me that dignity matters more than money.
That loyalty is more valuable than blood relation, and that standing up for yourself is always the right choice, no matter how hard it is.
I miss her every day. But I honor her memory by continuing her work through the foundation and by speaking out against elder abuse. Thank you, Miss Eleanor, for everything. You changed my life and the lives of hundreds of young people through your generosity. You will never be forgotten. Maria Rodriguez. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe for more real legal cases about protecting vulnerable people and seeking justice. Share this with anyone who might need to hear Eleanor's story. Remember, your assets are yours. Family doesn't give anyone the right to exploit you. Protect yourself. Trust the people who've proven themselves trustworthy. And never let guilt stop you from defending your rights.